Why exposure doesn't work. Kind of weird, right? Exposure, you would think exposure would work, right? I mean, in fact, if you've been watching this channel, you would say, what? Exposure doesn't work? How can that be possible? How are you accepting and exposing yourself then? How are you going back to living? Here's the truth. Exposure actually has its limitations. And when you're focused on recovery, when you're focused on eliminating these physical symptoms, these feelings of unreality, these intrusive thoughts, these emotions, exposure can only take you so far. What I want to talk about in this video is really actually what to focus on long term. And the limitations of exposure, and really by the end of the video, really talk to you about long-term freedom. Look, not a lot of people talk about this. Most people talk about just doing a few things that scare you. This video is going to be more about regaining your life, going back to your old self, your carefree self. And for that, you need to know a little bit more. So pay attention. So what is exposure? Exposure is this idea of, let's say you are afraid of going somewhere. Let's say you had your first panic attack in a grocery store. Now, what happens is that when you have a panic attack, your body kind of takes like a mental snapshot. And what happens is that if you ever go to a similar situation, you'll notice that your panic attack comes back. And so exposure is this idea that you go back into those situations and face what you fear. Because when you had your first panic attack, you may have not even known it was a panic attack. You may have just thought, oh my God, I'm going to die. That's at least what I thought. But the truth is that when you go back, you just learn, oh, it's just a panic attack. Okay, that's all it is. But that actually has its own limitations. So that's the idea of exposure. And so exposure is actually great. It actually works really well. It's actually the truth. In order to recover, you need to expose yourself. But what I see a lot of individuals doing is they try to go into exposure. They try to expose themselves thinking that if they go to the grocery store, all of a sudden their anxiety will be gone and then they'll be back to living. Exposure doesn't work without understanding how anxiety works first. For example, if you feel like your heart palpitations are due to an underlying heart condition, well, it doesn't matter what exposure therapy you're going to do. You're always going to be terrified of the heart. Or if you feel like these feelings of unreality, these derealization, depersonalization is because you're in an alternate dimension, or you're unsure about reality or something like that, it doesn't matter what you throw yourself in, what kind of exposure you do. If you are afraid of the worst case scenario, it doesn't matter. It's just not going to work that way. Imagine you're thrown into a lion's den. And lions are coming at you, and I'm just telling you, just allow it to be there, allow it to be there. Look, if a lion's coming at you full force, there's no amount of allowance that's going to help. So the first thing before you even start exposure is to really focus on understanding the mechanics of anxiety. What I mean by that is, how does anxiety work? How does it create these physical symptoms? How does it create these emotions that you're experiencing? How is it creating these feelings of unreality, this derealization, this depersonalization? How is it creating these intrusive thoughts that are making you think the worst case scenario? These thoughts that, what if you lose control? And so it's really important before you even focus on exposures to understand the mechanics, because if you don't understand what's happening, anxiety will trick you every time. And so it's really important to really understand what's happening first, then focus on facing your fears. Now, if you really want to know more about how to overcome anxiety, how to overcome this once and for all, what are the mechanics of anxiety so that you don't get tricked into thinking it, well, what I'll do is I'll put a link down below. This is a link to a free report that I've written out that really shows you step by step how the mechanics of anxiety work. Now look, this isn't a substitute for getting medical advice. Make sure you've gotten everything ruled out by your doctor. What I've personally found, the people that follow me and the people that I help guide, they've gone to doctors multiple times. But if you haven't gotten your doctors checked out, if you haven't gotten it checked out by your doctor, definitely get that ruled out first. So even before you start exposure therapy, it's really important to understand what's happening. If you don't know what's happening, you'll always get tricked by anxiety. And the truth is that how the mechanism of anxiety is pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. And once you understand a few things, everything kind of makes sense. Now, you're still going to be scared of the symptoms. You're still going to be thinking these what-if situations. The best way to overcome it is actually exposing yourself. However, once you start exposing yourself, you realize that it's just anxiety, or, these symptoms really can't hurt you. That's kind of where exposure ends. The focus on overcoming anxiety, though, is not just exposure. Exposure isn't just a checkbox where it's like, okay, I did this, cool. I know I can do it, fine. The focus should be in regaining your life. See, what happens with most people struggling with anxiety, actually with everybody struggling with anxiety that's not focused on the right steps, they experience anxiety in a certain situation, so they avoid that situation. They don't want to feel anxiety. What happens? When they start avoiding that situation starts generalizing, hence the term generalized anxiety disorder. And so what happens is that you start avoiding other situations that are like that. What ends up happening so often is that people become agoraphobic. Agoraphobic means they are scared of even leaving their house, because even leaving their house all of a sudden now brings anxiety. So what they end up doing is that they just constantly avoid. Agoraphobia is just that. It's just extreme avoidance behavior. Now, the key to overcoming is exposure, going back and exposing yourself in situations that scare you, but it doesn't stop there. The focus is on regaining your life. So the focus should be on going back to living as normally as possible. See, when you're struggling with anxiety, you kind of approach anxiety like you approach the flu, right? Like if you're sick, you want to stay in bed. Once you start feeling better, you go back to work. Well, anxiety recovers the opposite. Once you understand the mechanics, once you expose yourself, you go to work with these symptoms there. You don't try to fight it. You don't try to fix it. The symptoms go away later. And in fact, as the symptoms go away later, as you regain your life, that's where the confidence comes. So exposure does have its limitations. Exposure just shows you that nothing bad's going to happen. That doesn't mean that these symptoms go away. And that doesn't mean that you don't dislike these symptoms. These symptoms will still be there. However, the goal should be the next step, which is regain your life, which is living as normal as possible. Once you live as normal as possible, are these symptoms still there? Yes. Temporarily though. It takes some time. These symptoms will take a little bit of time to kind of disappear because, they've picked up momentum. So the focus should be on long-term freedom and regaining your life. So if you really want to know more about how to get out of this once and for all, if you're really trying to focus on, Shaan, how do I just go back to living, or can you just guide me through this? Can you take me step by step through this? Well, assuming you've gotten everything ruled out by your doctor and everything's good, I have a mentorship program where I'm guiding people step by step, taking people by the hand, taking them to recovery. The goal isn't exposure. The goal isn't just knowledge. The goal is regaining their lives where these symptoms no longer bug them and these symptoms are no longer there. The goal is ultimate freedom, not making anxiety even part of the conversation. And this needs to be a chapter closed. They go back to living. Anxiety is no longer a problem. They have better problems. They have work problems, family problems, whatever it is, normal people problems, not anxiety problems. And so the idea is ultimate freedom, going back to living, focusing on other things, all the good things in life, being ultimately free. So if that's you, hit the link down below. I have a mentorship where I'm guiding a select group of people and I'm taking them step by step to recovery. This isn't just me that's helping people that I've helped also overcome. Not only that, these are also people that have recovered themselves. These aren't just people that are just reading this stuff on a textbook and telling people what to do to overcome anxiety. These people, their own life depended on it. If they hadn't recovered, they'd be stuck in the cycle too, just like I would have been. I would have been somebody watching this video. But these people have fully overcame it, regained their lives, and are helping other people do the same. So if that's you, hit the link down. When you hit the link, you're going to watch a short video that really tells you a little bit more about the mentorship to let you know if you're a good fit or not. If you're not, that's totally cool. Following that short video, there's an application page. When you fill out that application, my team and I will review it. And if you're a great fit, we'll schedule a strategy session with you absolutely free. We'll see your biggest roadblocks, we'll see your biggest struggles. And if you're a good fit, I'll take you underneath my wing and guide you to recovery myself. And if you're not a good fit, that's totally cool too. We'll let you know and we'll give you some resources if we have to. So definitely check it out and I'll see you guys in the next one.